The Minnesota Twins are losing games, but not ground. They dropped 4 of 6 at home last week as their late season slump continues, but the Twins only lost a half game in the Central standings and they remain 4.5 clear of the Boston Red Sox for the final wildcard spot. With 1 month left to go, the goal for Minnesota is simple: hang on for dear life. What's up, everybody? My name is Nick Nelson. Welcome to the Twins Daily Week in Review podcast. Coming at you on Monday this week rather than our usual Sunday night slot. Had a bit of a busy holiday weekend, so apologize for the delay, but still we will quickly cover the events of the past 7 days for the Twins as we always do. So let's dive right in with your weekly snapshot for Monday, August 26th through Sunday, September 1st. We are into September, folks. The Twins' record last week, they went 2-4 to drop their overall record to 74 and 62 on the season. A run differential of negative 22 last week. Twins outscored by 22 runs, thanks mainly to one very lopsided blowout. Their overall run differential on the season drops to plus 51. And the Twins end the week tied at second place in the American League Central, as they were a week ago. Now 3.5 games out. They were 3 games out last Sunday. So again, just losing a half game in the standings despite going 2-4. That's not too bad. So let's quickly run through the game-by-game results for last week. Twins opened a series against the Atlanta Braves at Target Field on Monday. Bailey Ober bombing in that weather-disrupted loss for the Twins, a 10-6 Braves victory. On Tuesday, the Twins fell behind early, battled back, but could not finish the job in an 8-6 loss. And then on Wednesday, a pretty poor performance from the bullpen and the offense as the Twins folded in a sweep-clinching 5-1 loss against Atlanta. Another struggle series against a very good team for the Twins. They had Thursday off, came out on Friday with a nice crisp 2-0 victory over the Toronto Blue Jays. Pablo dealing in that game, Jackson Duran slamming the door shut. On Saturday, the Twins lost 15-0. Zebby Matthews just imploding, offense producing nothing in one of the biggest blowouts in franchise history. And then on Sunday, able to salvage a series victory with Royce Lewis hitting a big late clutch home run in a 4-3 victory over Toronto. Let's dive into our news and notes and roster updates here from the past week. The banner headline, unfortunately, still no Carlos Correa, still no Byron Buxton for the Twins. We have officially flipped the calendar to the last month of the season, and neither star player has even begun a rehab assignment as of yet. Sounds like Buxton could be close to doing so, potentially on Tuesday with the Saints, from what I'm hearing. But it is time to come to grips with the reality that Carlos Correa probably is not going to make it back before the end of September, if at all. There is simply no indication, unfortunately, that the all-star shortstop is anywhere close to being ready, as this plantar fasciitis in his right foot continues to show a lack of meaningful improvement. Still not really able to run at full intensity, and until that changes, not going to be much change in his status, unfortunately. Twins struggling to win games in the absence of their best players, but they did get some key reinforcements on Sunday when rosters expanded for September. Reliever Diego Castillo joined the bullpen. He was with the Twins earlier this year. Likely a temporary addition, I think. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the pitching staff shakeups that are likely ahead. Michael Hellman, also promoted from AAA, setting up his major league debut at age 28, gives the Twins a versatile right-handed bat. And the Twins are going to need Hellman in that capacity because Manuel Margot landed on the injured list due to a groin injury suffered on Saturday. That could potentially end his season. The biggest addition of the week, Brooks Lee. He rehabbed with the Saints over the past week after spending 3 weeks on the injured list with that shoulder injury. Lee launched a homer and a pair of doubles in 5 games with St. Paul and was activated on Sunday to rejoin the Twins. He went 1 for 4 in his return to MLB action, hitting at the bottom of the Twins lineup. So, you'd like to see him earn his way back up to the top. That would be a big development for the Twins. If he can recapture that spark that he provided when he first joined the team, Brooks Lee could be a real difference maker, and the Twins could use that with Correa sidelined and still Buxton for now. One person who will not be a difference maker for the Twins in September is their lone trade deadline pickup. Trevor Richards was designated for assignment on Tuesday, less than a month after the front office acquired him from Toronto, in one of the lowest wattage, most pointless deadline moves you could ever see. Michael Tonkin was claimed off waivers to replace Richards on the roster after being waived by the Yankees days earlier. Tonkin, a solid pickup, I think, had a pretty good stretch with the Yankees and could give the Twins some good innings. But to replace your only trade deadline acquisition with a roster pickup, obviously, quite an indictment of that entire situation. Also rounding out the roster moves from the past week, the Twins designated Caleb Bosley for assignment and moved Chris Paddack to the 60-day injured list to make room for those new additions on the 40-man roster. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from the past week of baseball for the Twins. Friday night's game against Toronto followed the exact script that Rocco Baldelli and the Twins hope to orchestrate if they are going to make noise in the playoffs. In fact, it is pretty much the same script that played out in their Game 1 victory that broke their streak against this same Blue Jays team last October. Pablo Lopez pitched brilliantly, outdueling Kevin Gausman in a rematch of that Game 1 matchup. The offense scratched enough to build a small lead. Griffin Jax and Yohan Duran locked down said lead at game's end. That is a formula that simply works for this team. We've seen it work time and time again, including in the playoffs. Lopez has been inspiring a great deal of confidence lately with his performance, his latest gem adding to a growing run of ace-caliber production. In his past 12 starts, Pablo Lopez has a 2.38 ERA, and the Twins have gone 8-4 in those games. Crucially, Lopez has relieved the burden on a beleaguered relief corps, completing 7 or more innings in 5 of those 12 starts, including going into the 8th in a couple of them, Friday night's game included. He did leave that game in a bit of a trouble spot with 2 on and 2 out in the 8th, but Griffin Jax came in and did what he does, quickly neutralizing the threat. Jax struck out Dalton Varsho of the Blue Jays on 3 pitches to wrap up a perfect month of August for the elite reliever. 12 and a third innings, no runs allowed, 6 hits, all of them singles, 17 strikeouts, and 0 walks. It does not really get much better than that. Unfortunately, of course, naturally, as soon as the calendar flipped to September, Jax's streak of perfect performance came to an end. He gave up a couple runs in Sunday's game, and as a result, the Twins appeared to be headed for a 1-5 week before Royce Lewis turned the tides on a sleepy loss in Sunday's rubber match against the Jays. With the Twins trailing by 2 runs in the 8th, 2 on, 1 out, Lewis got a hold of a pitch from Chad Green of the Jays and launched it just over the left field wall for a go-ahead 3-run blast. I know Royce didn't quite think he got all of it, but he got enough. His first time going deep in 17 games, and hopefully a sign that he's ready to break free from the first extended offensive drought of his career. Royce Lewis has definitely been doing the slump thing, but if he can change that in September, needless to say, that would be a massive development for this team. Turning to the lowlights from a 2-4 week that saw the Twins get swept at home and lose one of their worst blowouts that we've seen. As much as Friday night's game showcased that sound winning formula for the Twins, Saturday's game laid bare, I think, many of the flaws that threatened to derail this team in its ambitions. A rookie starter who is still acclimating to the big leagues got absolutely annihilated, with the Blue Jays jumping on poor Zebby Matthews for 9 runs on 10 hits in 2 innings. Toronto came in with a game plan to swing away at the strike-throwing Matthews, and he had no answers in this one, so we'll see how he bounces back. Minnesota's lefty-stacked lineup, meanwhile, could come up with nothing against our old friend Jose Barrios, and the Jays' bullpen got out-hit 23-4 in front of the home fans. One of the main culprits, again, Max Kepler, he went 0-4, finishing the month of August with a punchless .222 average, .250 on base, and .333 slugging. He had 5 extra base hits, 6 RBIs, and 2 walks in all of August. That last one really sticks out to me because Kepler, when he's going good, is a disciplined pitcher who can work in at bat. Just not getting walks. Pitchers are going after him and not paying for it. And he also started his September on Sunday 0-4. So there we go. Royce Lewis was 1-4 in Saturday's game, 2-19 on the week before that dramatic home run on Sunday. These are the bats that Minnesota needs to be stepping up in the absence of Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. We got a positive sign from Royce on that front, at least on Sunday, but no indication that Kepler is close to getting hot. and really no indication that he's even fully healthy, which makes you wonder what's he doing on the roster. He's not really carrying any weight right now. The offense generally dragged very hard after a decent start to last week. In their final 4 games, they scored just 4 total runs before that 3-run blast in the 8th by Royce Lewis on Sunday. In addition to the light yields from Kepler and Lewis, Austin Martin has crashed pretty hard following a modest hot streak in mid-August. He was brutal last week, 2 singles and 16 plate appearances, 6 strikeouts, no walks. Speaking of brutal, Bailey Ober's impressive string of quality starts came crashing to a halt on Monday night, gave up 9 earned runs over 2 innings against the Braves. Another blow-up. We've seen a couple of those from Bailey Ober, as good as he's been. With Joe Ryan down, it goes without saying that the Twins badly need Ober to pitch like a frontliner, as he has for the past couple of months. So hopefully this clunker just a hiccup. He did rebound on Sunday with 6 innings of 1-run ball, and that suggests so. It is noteworthy, as we'll talk about shortly, though, that Ober's next outing is against Kansas City, a team that has tormented him in his career. Really tough to watch the Twins come up so woefully short against the Braves last week, failing yet another litmus test against a top-tier team. And there aren't many of those tests left now until October, which I suppose is a good thing. The Twins, over half their games in the month of September here are coming against sub-500 competition. But Minnesota is going to need to show its mettle in key upcoming showdowns against Kansas City, Cleveland, and Boston. They've got to rise to the occasion more so than they have in some of these series against good teams. Our trending storyline here as we flip the calendar to the first week of September. I mentioned Buxton. Sounds like he is finally getting close to a rehab assignment, so that will definitely be worth keeping an eye on, although that's been the same story here for the past several weeks. To me, the handling of Louis Varland becomes a really key focus as we march into the final month of the season. The Twins are going to need Varland as a weapon out of the bullpen if they want to beat good teams. They know that. At the same time, they need him stretched out as rotation depth for the time being. Do-Hyung Park of MLB.com noted over the weekend that the team has talked about using 6 starters at times in September to navigate a packed schedule. They are currently amidst a run of 13 games with no break. So Twins currently have Wednesday's starter against Tampa listed as TBD. It is expected that Varland will be called up to make that start. As I mentioned, the Twins in the middle of a pretty long stretch with no break. They need those bulk innings from Varland more than anything right now. But as they shift their gaze toward the end of the season and the playoffs, they are going to need that bullpen upgrade that we know he's able to provide. They are just so thin on trustworthy options at the back end of the bullpen right now, especially with Jorge Alcala really losing a lot of that trust. So how long can the Twins wait to make this move with Varland and potentially even some other guys in the bullpen? I do think that their position in the standings, which is still pretty comfortable now from a wild card perspective, may dictate that answer. They want to get those innings and get through the end of the season and make sure they're going to be in a healthy position for the playoffs. If they're comfortable, they're going to get there. So let's look ahead now to close out the show to the the first week of the final month of the season. Rookies are slated to start 4 of 7 games in the week ahead for the Twins, and that's not counting Louis Varland, who is essentially a rookie. Twins are heading to Tampa to face an unexceptional but still solid Rays team. Never an easy assignment. And then it is off to Kansas City for a potentially pivotal 3-game set against the Kansas City Royals, with whom Minnesota is jockeying for playoff position, currently tied with Kansas City for second in the Central and for that second wildcard spot. The matchup on Friday between Zebby Matthews and all-star Cole Ragans, kind of an ominous one given Zebby's last performance. And then, as I mentioned, Ober set to pitch on Saturday against the Royals. He has a 7.71 career ERA and 9 starts against the Royals. So let's just take a closer look at those matchups. Against the Rays, Twins will be sending out Simeon Woods-Richardson on Monday, David Festa on Tuesday, a TBD on Wednesday, which, as I mentioned, I believe will be Louis Varland, and then Pablo Lopez closing out the series on Thursday. The Rays set to throw yet another old friend in the series opener, Zach Littell. Lefty Jeffrey Springs will pitch on Tuesday, and then it's the righty Taj Bradley on Wednesday, followed by Shane Baz on Thursday. As I mentioned, the Twins will be throwing Zebby Matthews and Bailey Ober in games 1 and 2 against Kansas City at Kauffman, and Simeon Woods Richardson is scheduled to close out that series. The Royals will be throwing Cole Reagans, Michael Wacha, and I believe as of now a TBD starter on Saturday. So a big week. The Twins did not have a very good homestand. Now they'll head on the road to face some fairly imposing competition. That Royals series is going to be a huge one. The big story is can these rookie starters continue to rise to the occasion here? We've seen maybe some chinks in the armor here over this past week. Definitely going to be interested to see how Zebby bounces back, how Festa pitches coming off of a very good outing. A lot of interesting things to keep an eye on, and of course, we'll be keeping an eye on these other teams in the standings. It's a very intense race that's set up here for the final 4 weeks of the season, so we'll be excited to follow it. And thank you for following along with us here on the Week in Review. We encourage you to come by twinsdaily.com this week and share your thoughts in the comments or the blogs. Lots of good stuff to talk about. So we'll be back with you next week, and we hope you all really enjoy this next 7 days because it's going to be some good baseball. All right. Goodbye, everyone.